Hey everyone, my name is Alex. I use they, them pronouns, and I am proud to serve as a member of the MDP Blue Crew. We are a group of Gen Z Democrats that are wanting to encourage and energize other Gen Z young individuals to care about the issues, to be civically engaged within politics, and to just overall be a part of the democratic process that's happening, especially with an election coming up. Um, Today, for the next around 10 to 15 minutes, I will be talking about an issue that matters very much to me, which is LGBTQ plus rights. As someone who is, of course, as you can see from the About Me screen, as an LGBTQ plus advocate, as a youth organizer, and also as the chief DEI officer for Michigan State University's undergraduate student government, this issue matters a lot to me. And as you all know, Republicans right now are using the LGBTQ plus community as a scapegoat, as their area of focus right now to distract people from real issues that matter to the American um, people. And really, what is happening is Republicans creating a culture war out of the LGBTQ plus community. They are dehumanizing individuals like myself. And one of the main things that has come about that is, of course, this notion that there is this idea that LGBTQ plus individuals are grooming children and individuals in society, that we're making people LGBTQ, or that we are sexually abusing individuals, or that we are, in the end of the day, predators, which is, again, totally false notion. But Republicans and far-right extremists have associated this idea because they see the LGBTQ plus community and honestly, any minoritized community as a threat. But in this particular, almost like TED Talk little session that I'm about to go through, I'm really going to explore this theory for you all and how it has had roots since, when Reagan was president back in the late 70s and 80s. And this, will link us to the modern day as well. So content warning, like I mentioned, the slides will mention topics surrounding sexual abuse, rape, etc. So if that is something that you need to hop off, you need to find a place um, to just get away from the following content, please do so. Please take care of yourself and know that there are resources always available. So I always start off my lectures with something that just gets people's attention. And in this case, I have this here, which is when I was the president of a nonprofit organization that supports LGBTQ plus rights. We actually got this message when I was president still. And this individual sent my team and I a death threat. And he actually ended up being sentenced to like I think 100 hours of community service. So he at least was punished by the court of law. But people always say, well, homophobia doesn't have any consequences besides people feeling uncomfortable. And I'm like, I mean, that's already a consequence in itself, but no, it's not just that. There is also um, incidents like this where people will engage in violence when they believe in theories like the one I'm about to explain to you all. Um, Another thing I'm also going to mention before we jump into the topic is I also give some people some statistics because when we think about the LGBTQ plus community, people typically think that well, it's a minority, it's very small, and yes, the LGBTQ plus community is not not the majority whatsoever within society, but it is a huge significant chunk. There are millions of people within the United States that identify as LGBTQ plus, and according to the recent Gallup poll, over 7.6 percent of U.S. adults identify within the LGBTQ plus community. Um, I always say, just because we are not a majority, we are still here and we exist within society. And I always tell people, even if you are not LGBTQ plus, you might know someone who's LGBTQ plus, a family member, a coworker, a neighbor. Um, Even if you are not part of the community, you might know someone. And even if you don't know for definitively, you might say like, I don't know anyone who's LGBTQ plus. You might not know because some may not have come out to you. So we are out here. And of course, like I mentioned, it's 7.6 right now. And this number, of course, has continued to rise since 2012, which is just astonishing that, we've seen more and more people be comfortable with identifying as LGBTQ plus, which is just awesome, of course. And of course, we know Gen Z is the largest demographic right now that it's identifying as LGBTQ plus, 22%. is an astonishing number. And we see that, of course, that naturally decreases with older generations. But we know that among Gen Z, because we are one of the most accepting generations of society, and we are, of course, more tolerant, of course, more people are going to be okay with coming out and they feel comfortable coming out, which is why Gen Z has the largest number out of all the other generations. So, what is this anti-LGBTQ plus grooming theory I've been, saying about for the last few minutes? Well, firstly, it's important to know what grooming is. RAINN, which stands for the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, which is one of the largest anti-sexual violence organizations in our country, defines grooming as, quote, manipulative behaviors used by sexual abusers to, quote, to gain access to a potential victim, coerce them to agree to the abuse, and reduce the risk of being caught. Um, we know, of course, that this can happen both online or in person. Online is also very prevalent now within our society. It's so reliant on digital tech now, and of course, it is a way to attempt to gain a young person's trust by giving them gifts and attention, making sure that they're building a relationship, and then acting on the abuse. And the reason why it's important to know definition of grooming is because that is how we dispel myths of people who say, well, this is grooming, and well, it might not be. You have to make sure it matches the definition of what grooming is. Because right now there is this notion among far-right extremists that LGBTQ plus people or those who are supportive, not even just LGBTQ people itself, but they also say that people who are supportive, who are allies of the LGBTQ plus community, are engaging in child grooming and enabling child sexual abuse. This has been pushed by a growing number of mainstream conservatives, particularly in the United States. The United States is always leading somehow in conspiracy theories. And we particularly saw the use of groomer and pro-groomer as slurs during the last few years, especially in the early 2020s. When COVID happened, we were all locked in our houses, we were all on social media, and that's really when we saw that link, that correlation between, you know, anti-LGBTQ slurs and, of course, the use of groomer and pro-groomer as slurs. And then we then saw a correlation with a rise of anti-LGBTQ curriculum bills, and I'll go into that in a minute. So the origins of the theory first, where this, was this a new thing in the 2020s? No. The idea that LGBTQ people are wrong to society or that we're doing harm to other people has been in existence since the 70s. A very anti-LGBTQ activist and former singer, Anita Bryan, launched what she called the Save Our Children campaign back in the 70s. And it was this notion that, again, that, gay and lesbian people are harming our kids and we can't let them be in society. And that the more we are accepting of them, the more our society will be ruined and attacked and all the other unfortunate things that people have created. And this, of course, led to a lot of ballot measures happening in states in the country that would prohibit LGBTQ people from having rights. And in this case, in 1970, there was a California ballot measure that said that gay and lesbian people could not work in public schools if this measure passed. And while the ballot measure did fail, um, it laid the groundwork. It laid the groundwork, and that's when around time when Reagan became president, it laid the groundwork for conservatives incorporating other people and harming other people into their platform. This is really when we saw the rise of they would include LGBTQ people as a demographic, as a group that they want to target within their platform. So we know right now in 2024, the modern day Republican Party under Trump right now is also in their party platform wants to get rid of LGBTQ plus rights. And we saw a lot of these roots, and it's been a while for a long time, but we really saw the peak in the 1970s when this is really where the groundwork happened. And same with, and you might think, well, this the 70s when anti-LGBTQ rhetoric happened. It's not even just that. I mean, you look at abortion rights, for example. You look at, on a wide array of issues from disagreements to how we should run the economy, to issues pertaining to, legalization of marijuana, voting rights, all these different things were happening at the same time. This is really where conservatives laid the groundwork for the far-right movement that happens now. And that ballot measure that was led by a conservative state senator, John Briggs, he said, and I quote, "We are going to restore morality to the classroom and remove openly and blatant homosexuals from influencing and teaching our youth." Again, these theories were widely, spread through social media and right-wing channels. And again, It has laid the groundwork for QAnon supporters now today. It's laid the groundwork for Trump's platform today. And unfortunately, that is where we are now from these theories. So, when we look at from the 2020s now, we're in modern day now. We really saw that peak of people using grooming as as a slur towards the LGBTQ plus community around in 2021, especially on Twitter, when far-right conservative individuals such as Christopher Rufo, and of course, the anti-LGBTQ Twitter account known as Libs of TikTok, they started using these terms. In 2022, we knew that Republicans were also going to try to instill some legislation to attack the LGBTQ plus community. In 2022, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the quote "Don't Say Gay" bill into law, which prohibits discussions of gender identity or sexual orientation in elementary school and restricts discussions deemed quote age appropriate. Um, in higher grades. The entire claim for that law was that we are indoctrinating students. It is unfathomable that we have people who have used not only the grooming theory to attack people, but to make it into legislation and to create an issue that was a non-issue. And it got worse, of course. In March of April of 2022, Fox News, of course, also criticized public schools, saying that there are LGBTQ people grooming centers for gender ideology radicals. And what really was with that final point here, really I'm going to highlight that last part, which is said that there was a Media Matters report in April 2022 that revealed that Fox News aired over 170 segments focused on trans people over 3 weeks. And it just shows that there are people obsessing over the subject. Um, and it just really is unfortunate that what we saw on the roots of from the 70s into here now, we really just saw a peak during COVID. And of course, the worst part was it could have just stopped at people just being, homophobic or transphobic on Twitter. It became legislation. Here is actually a viral tweet from Christina Pushaw, who was Governor Ron DeSantis' press secretary. And in a March 4th, 2022 tweet, she said that anyone who opposed a Don't Say Gay bill was probably a groomer. The lawmakers have made the the notion that people who sexually abuse children are part of the LGBTQ plus community. That is where we are right now. And there were a few different studies that were done about that link between these, those terms and with the LGBTQ plus community. They said that this was a study using the tool Brand Watch, and they said that they looked at over almost 1 million tweets between January 1st and July 27th of around there in that time. I believe this was it was either 2020 or 2021. And it said that um, in the month following the passage of the Don't Say Gay or trans law, the volume of grooming related content increased by 406%. And they identified terms such as groomer, predator, and pedophile. It says here that there were 8,075 tweets per day on average mentioning slurs along the LGBTQ plus community. This is the result of hate, of misinformation, and when far-right individuals use other people's identities to as a political slogan. And you might be thinking, well, what is the impact of this? There are numerous impacts. Firstly, I want to mention some of the points here. It, of course, has legal and policy ramifications. We lead to more laws that attack the LGBTQ plus community, such as the Don't Say Gay law. We stigmatize LGBTQ plus individuals because now we're making it seem like if you're LGBTQ plus, you're automatically a groomer. We disregard survivors' experiences because, and I'm going to go into this in the next slide as well, actual survivors of sexual abuse and grooming um, are affected most because we're invalidating their traumas. We're connecting this random conspiracy theory with the real experiences of survivors of sexual assault. And again, we disregard their experiences. We also, of course, unfortunately increase violence, uh, uh, um, uh, um, violence on LGBTQ individuals because we're increasing this negative attitude and misconception that LGBTQ people are bad for society. And then, of course, leads to undermining mental health and well-being because LGBTQ people feel increased feelings of shame, isolation. We already know there's a direct link between depression, anxiety among LGBTQ individuals. We make it worse when people promote theories like this. Um, you know, and one of the biggest harmful effects, like what I mentioned before, it disregards stories of actual people who are affected by sexual assault or violence or abuse. Jenny Coleman, who's a director of Stop It Now, another major anti-sexual violence organization, said, quote, "It feels like child sex abuse prevention is being hijacked by people to fit an agenda that has absolutely nothing to do with preventing child sex abuse." And Laura Palomambo, who is the communication director for the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, said, quote, "Many survivors who may not even have disclosed their experience to their own friends, families, and loved ones because of the shame and stigma that they face," she added, and then to see their stories are being tossed around by others to make a point about an unrelated issue that does not have a harmful impact. There is no correlation between LGBTQ plus individuals in grooming. No correlation whatsoever. Someone's sexual orientation or gender identity has nothing to do with them committing child sex crimes. And we know the true effect of what's happening right now. Because of laws like the Don't Say Gay law, we know that it is having an indirect effect on LGBTQ plus individuals. And in general, with how we as society have stigmatized LGBTQ plus individuals, it's no secret that we've seen such high rates of suicide, anxiety, depression among LGBTQ plus youth. According to the Trevor Project, 41% of LGBTQ plus young people seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. 41%. 14% actually attempted suicide. 67% of LGBTQ plus young people reported experiencing symptoms of anxiety. 54% of LGBTQ plus young people reported experiencing symptoms of depression. And there's some other stats here that y'all can read, but these are not low numbers whatsoever. And within percentages of US adults with symptoms of anxiety and depression by age and LGBTQ status, look at how many LGBTQ plus individuals experience rates of anxiety and depression among the age brackets. Look at these numbers and look how much higher it is to non-LGBTQ individuals. There is a correlation between us stigmatizing LGBT plus individuals and higher rates of anxiety and depression for the community. And literally most recently, this was a new study published just a few weeks ago. The Trevor Project reported that state laws that target trans or gay people cause a 72 increase in suicide attempts among trans and non-binary youth. 72%. And these theories lead to that. So I want to end really quickly here with a quote which says, "Ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to hate, and hate leads to violence. This is the equation." And as I sort of conclude my lecture, I want you all to know that right now we are seeing an epidemic of hate and violence, and I'm just on the LGBTQ plus community, but marginalized communities as a whole. And as we approach election day, um, there are only 33 days until election day. And as we approach this consequential election, I ask every single person that when you are voting and casting your vote for either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party up and down a ballot, including either for Kamala Harris, who's the Democratic nominee, or Donald Trump, who is the Republican nominee, think to yourself, which party is the one that will fight for marginalized communities? Which party is the one that will stand up for the rights of people of all genders, of all ethnicities, of all races, and truly embraces our diversity as a society, rather than encouraging fear, encouraging hate, when we know that hate leads to violence. Donald Trump, when he was president, consistently attacked the LGBTQ plus community. He was the most anti-LGBTQ plus president we've seen in our country. When President Biden was sworn in, right now we know he's the most pro LGBTQ plus he has been his administration has been the most pro LGBTQ plus presidency. We saw um, new laws being passed that would protect LGBTQ plus rights through the Biden administration. We must make sure that we elect Kamala Harris to protect LGBTQ plus rights, to ensure that theories like this, baseless theories with no correlation whatsoever, no evidence rooted in science, fail, and that we will continue to uphold the rights of LGBTQ individuals, because we know that when LGBTQ plus individuals feel respected, feel uplifted, feel safe, we know that leads to lower rates of suicide and that we as a society continue to thrive better. That concludes my little lecture, TED Talk, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I encourage you all to remember to vote on November 5th. It is coming really soon. As you all know, in Michigan, absentee ballots have already been mailed out. Early voting is about to start really soon. So make sure to go check your registration. Make sure that you, if you've not voted yet, either through absentee, that you have a plan to vote, either through early voting or on election day, which is Tuesday, November 5th. And yeah, just make sure to have a plan because every vote matters in this election. And this is a consequential election where every vote will determine whether we still have a democracy, whether we still care about protecting the rights of marginalized communities, and people in general, whether we, will protect the rights to abortion for women. There are a lot of things that are at stake. So go vote, do your research, and as always, I hope you all have a really awesome day. Thank you all.